Back on the Pauly Walnuts podcast, baby.
Was that recording? Yeah, you didn't like the, nobody seems to like the P-Dub name.
I like it because I made it stand for Pauly Walnuts, what it was supposed to stand for, not this winning acronym that everyone talks about.
Winning acronym?
Isn't that dub? Take a dub? Take a W?
Oh, I didn't even know. No, it was my initials, PW.
Oh, okay.
And then I had a roommate years ago when I was like 19 or 20, and he was like, PW, what's up?
Okay.
And then it became P-Dub. That's where it came from.
Okay.
So anytime I've done anything like artistic, like if I made a painting, or I used to do some music recording stuff, like mess around with some EDM or whatever, like just anything artistic, I'd always named it P-Dub.
I like it because I can call it the Pauly Walnuts podcast. So
Well, I kind of like the Pauly Walnuts podcast name.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could seriously call this
It's not serious.
Pauly Walnuts. It's not serious?
No, it's just a name.
It's true. Anyone listening, do you guys want a name change from P-Dub to Pauly Walnuts?
Do it for sure.
In all seriousness.
Yeah.
Let's take a vote. Thumbs up for keeping P-Dub, or thumbs up for Pauly Walnuts. There's some other name options out there too, but
Okay.
bro, I'm glad you could be here.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be out here, man. I love Texas, and I'm excited to go shooting and do the podcast and stuff. So
Yeah, we got the camp and shoot today.
yeah,
We're going camping tonight, and then taking the people shooting tomorrow.
yeah,
I'm excited.
yeah. It's gonna be sweet.
Yeah. Do you did you do any training of people when you were in the Army?
Not officially, but it's like a constant process, right? You get new guys in, you train them, or you're the new guy who comes in, you're being trained. So it's not like you don't have to be an instructor to train people, you know.
Sure.
After 4 years in Ranger Regiment, I was the one in charge of training the people who came into my team, and so I've done quite a bit of training.
Yeah, I noticed when we were in Ukraine, and pull up this picture from in the Adam folder. Scroll down. It's Adam sitting on the couch.
Oh no, it's at the top there.
Oh, is it at the top?
Yeah.
There it is. Sure, this thing. I don't know why this picture cracks me up so much. But it's just like this warlord sitting with his old gun.
My crappy little FNC rifle and what is it, a shoebox of our new team layout.
Pizza box or something?
Yeah, I think it's a shoebox.
Oh, shoebox? Okay.
Yeah.
But what I really appreciated, because we didn't know each other at all, really, at that point. We had known each other maybe a week, and you stepped right into this role where you were trying to help the guys that were there learn, become more cohesive, so that we could get unified on the tactics.
Yeah.
And like how we were going to handle certain situations. And you just stepped right in. No one was telling you to do that. And so I saw right away that you had that teaching spirit of just wanting to make sure the guys are well trained and that we could all be, on the same page.
Yeah, and I'm not always like that. I'm not always willing and ready to just hop in and teach people like that. But I saw a definite deficiency and a need. So the team organization prior to this meeting was set up like it was like an SF ODA. So like, the team sergeant and the medic and the, whatever. I was an SF. I don't know their whole setup. But I know direct action and I know ground combat, and that is not the optimal setup. And also I don't think we had people that were specialized enough to fill that role. So I kind of had to step in there and say, listen, we're not that. We are this. We are the infantry. Like we are our country's strength in war, deterrent in peace. Like full on, no specialties, no cool guy stuff, like we're just fighting and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because that first week, and when you gave me your notes, it was really cool to read your viewpoint on it, that whole first week was basically a selection process in itself.
Yeah.
And just by being present in that location, we hadn't even done anything yet. We hadn't gone on any ops. Nothing had happened. They were just moving us from the far west of Ukraine over into Kyiv to get us staged to go do stuff. And just that 1 week process alone was pretty chaotic.
It was enough to get most people to leave of their own accord, to get most people to quit. And I listened to a good book this past week. They called it Battlefield Friction. So it's like the issues on the battlefield before you're even fighting, right? So the hardest part of getting to getting to meet the enemy on the field of battle is just getting there, right? Finding the enemy's location and getting to that location in a timely manner. Fighting the enemy, that's the fun part, right? That's what's easy. That's what everyone's there for. But it's not easy to get to that point. And so I think, the Ukrainians, and they're, it's early war, so they don't have these administrative systems in place, and them just kind of jerking our chain all around, left and right and up and down and whatever, right? If those guys were there for battle, that those things didn't mean anything, right? The administrative jerking around, because we were, like, my goal was to get on the ground and take the fight to the enemy, right? To the Russian soldiers. I don't know what their goal was, but it certainly wasn't to fight the enemy because they didn't stick it out. And that was a good selection process. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know that it was even intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
No, it wasn't intentional at all. No.
Yeah, if we think about it, like going back to the early days, and I covered this in 2 episodes ago when I was talking about self-narrating my experience of going to Ukraine. We talked about President Zelensky talking about the formation and really the invitation of anyone out there, if you have experience, please come help us fight. I think that was February 27th or 8th.
Yeah.
And that was basically the formation of the International Legion. What people don't know is that, yes, they had documentation. We're going to form an International Legion. President Zelensky goes on the news and says, we're inviting anyone to come over. That was it. There was no official documentation. I've talked to the Ukrainians at length about this, that there was no true formation of a legion in terms of like all the legal proceedings and the paperwork and all of that stuff to stand up a new branch of the military. That didn't exist. So when we showed up, essentially day one, they're just getting all of their act together. They're just figuring out how to form a new branch while the plane is already flying. So they're trying to put wings on the plane while it's already in the air. They're trying to put an engine on the front. They're trying to do all this stuff while the plane's already flying. And everyone was really pissed off about that.
Yeah. And it was just that battlefield friction, right? Getting to the fight. And they were like, well, in the American military, it's like this or it's like that. This isn't the American military.
It's not.
It's not a 200-year-old, 250-year-old military. It's not that, right? It's about 8 years old, 9 years old. It doesn't have those systems in place. Not to mention, it's entirely across the globe. It's Eastern Europe, right? The culture's not the same. The people aren't the same. Their experiences aren't the same. They don't think the same. And here we are saying we're going to form a special forces ODA and do this our way, which didn't work out. Our way simply just couldn't coexist with the Ukrainian way. Everyone left. Everyone quit and left. So it was I think it was me, you, Mickey, and Sean and Dags left after that whole administrative week of just being jerked around.
Well, everyone other than us.
Yeah.
You mean, yeah.
Yeah, everyone other than us got out of there.
Yeah, there was some. We don't have to get into the whole shenanigans at the hotel, but that was also a pruning process too, where there was some disrespect to the place that they had put us in, I think, because it was actually people's homes. Some of those were people's homes.
Yeah.
And so the Ukrainians were like, hey, man, like, we invited you here to come help us. We didn't ask you to come and, like, sabotage our people's homes. That's not cool. And that was their vibe about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you know, we don't want that. And then the commander, we'll leave his name out, but the commander of the Legion was like, hey, screw that. These guys are out of here. And then, but I think he didn't actually really care. He was just, like, pissed off that people are, like, he has more things to worry about. He has to worry about the capital of his country being invaded. He doesn't care if people are not sabotage, but disrespecting, vandalizing.
Yeah,
he didn't have time to deal with vandalism. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, get him out of here. And so then remember that giant Polish guy,
Sasha, yeah.
He shows up like he's the boss or something, and that was a whole situation in itself. But he basically was like, "No, if you guys want to stay, you can stay." And but then you saw these attitudes from these people that were already seemingly stressed out and battle fatigued, and we hadn't even done anything yet, and they were like, "Screw this, man! They want to disrespect us. We're here to help and all that stuff." It's like, it's the wrong attitude to have, man.
Exactly.
Like, I don't even want to work with you guys anymore anyway, because you're mad that they're upset that you vandalized their stuff. That's not how life works.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, while what they considered vandalism, we considered like an operational positive, right? We needed a whiteboard, we needed supplies and stuff, and then we broke the door down to get in and get those supplies because we didn't have the context, right, of, yes, Kyiv is being invaded, but also we still live here and this is still our home, right? We didn't have that context. And so once we gained that context, it was very easy to put into perspective, okay, the operational necessity is out on the front line. Here in Kyiv, we still want to keep a sense of like normalcy and like our homeland being here.
Yeah.
And so that was a good piece of perspective to get from the Ukrainians after that incident. And also the fact that all the people who left, they couldn't see that. They couldn't see like that this was still their home and that the Ukrainians were not disrespecting them. They still wanted them there to fight.
Yeah.
But they what they wanted was a free pass to do anything and all the equipment to do it with. And they showed that they weren't the soldiers who were capable of handling that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, you definitely saw the reactions, the maturity level of certain people in that context. And like I said, that's what's I keep coming back to. It's like we hadn't done anything yet.
Yeah.
And this, all of this stuff was going down. I can't imagine, and for any Ukrainians listening, I can't imagine all of you that were working for the Legion having to deal with us, because Americans can be super arrogant, especially when interacting with people from other countries. And we have this attitude that like everything you have isn't good enough and our stuff is always better than you. And I know that we have that attitude, and it's a terrible attitude to have. And anyone that's well-traveled in the world won't have that attitude, but a lot of Americans are not well-traveled. And you can say, oh, I was in the military and I did all these deployments, but you didn't immerse yourself in the culture. Mm-hmm. You left the FOB and came back, and you've always only been around Americans. There's a different thing when you go as a civilian and like hang out in huts for a few weeks and get on the train and have to do stuff, travel as a civilian. There's a different vibe that you encounter.
Exactly. And it's not just Americans either. It was all the foreigners in the Foreign Legion.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, we're soldiers. We're here to fight for you. Like, you know, I'm the soldier of fortune. I'm going to save the battle for Kyiv. And a good soldier knows that he is the least of the strategic and the tactical turning point of this thing.
Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it, right? A soldier isn't going to be able to stop the artillery from pounding, the convoys of supplies that are trying to get in, or he's not going to stop the tank from shelling the frontline position most of the time, right? And and these people thought they can just come in and save everyone. And then as soon as it started to not go their way, it was game over, full implosion, no resilience whatsoever, just like like running around the hotel screaming, getting drunk. It was ridiculous.
That's a story too.
Yeah.
What was your, because I do want to talk about what happens before the war, but once because you were originally with someone else and then you joined us.
Yeah.
What was your impression showing up at that base where we were located? Your impression of the people, the vibe.
It was like a very like spooky kind of vibe.
Like Halloween spooky?
Yeah, like Halloween spooky, dude. Because you like rolling downstairs. The first people I see were Jesse and Kevin. And so Jesse, I'm like, that dude's a Ranger. Like,
oh, really?
I had him pinned from the second I saw him.
No kidding.
He had a beanie halfway on his head, dude, sunglasses on. We have a piece of cold weather gear called the 3 Alpha, and it's supposed to be like an underlayer for your jacket, but everyone just wears it. He's wearing the 3 Alpha, dude. He's got sweatpants on, like curly hair sticking out from underneath the beanie. I was like, that's a Ranger.
Yeah.
And he was like, was anyone here special operations? So I went over to him. I was like, hey, man, I was in 1st Ranger Battalion. Where were you? He goes, oh, I was a dog handler in 375. And then we started talking. He kind of vetted me a little bit, and it was cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some butt sniffing going on.
Yeah.
In that environment.
Yeah.
Like, what are you? What's going on? What's your thing? Like,
yeah,
do you actually know what you're talking about? Or
and everyone's, everyone's trying to be all like, like no one wants to give away what they are initially, but I was like, screw it, like I'm here to fight. If someone asks me, I'll tell them I was a Ranger. I won't blow my service out of proportion. I never lied about anything I did in service. But in an environment like that where there's no accountability, people just lie about everything.
Yeah, I was thinking about this while we were getting ready for this episode. Why did people do that? Why was there this blatant misrepresentation of people's backgrounds? And I think it's people didn't want to miss out on something. And so if there's an opportunity to do something, and someone could go on maybe an op or something, and then they're like, what's your background? And like, oh, you weren't special operations? You're not going on the op. And that was kind of, I could feel that tension. It's like, when you'd go to that lobby of the hotel and you could just feel the energy, man. Like some rooms are pretty neutral, and that lobby was...
It was dark.
It was
dark down there.
It's a dark lobby, man. And physically, the lighting in there, they blacked out all the windows, and so it was already dark.
Yeah.
But it was a depressing, dark, toxic pit of despair.
Yeah.
And I hated being in that lobby. I never wanted to go down there.
I never went down there unless I was down there to eat.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I wouldn't take the dang elevators because I was scared of getting hit by a rocket. So I would go up the stairs every time. Was it like 13 floors or something?
I don't remember I don't know what floor we were on.
Yeah, I think it was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
But I was like, no elevators. I'm not getting stuck in here if we get hit by a rocket. I'm taking the stairs.
Well, that one base had got hit.
Yavoriv, they blew up Yavoriv.
And the rumor mill going around was that, it was because of the social media stuff. Idiots were posting pictures of our location.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, they hit that place, and someone's taking pictures for sure of where we're at now, and so it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But we didn't know. I found out later, because you know me, I like to ask a lot of questions, and I'm a talky guy, but...
Yeah.
I found out that where we were was under the missile umbrella, the missile barrier. So we were in the capital area with all the government buildings, and so everyone was like, "We got to get out of this place. This is the next place to get hit." That was the toxic thing in the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
But then finding out later that was probably one of the safest buildings to be in that we could have been.
Maybe I'm still skeptical. I'm not 100% on board with the fact that like we were under this missile barrier that was impenetrable.
I didn't say impenetrable, but there was some anti-air, anti-missile mechanisms in place there more than anywhere else that we were at.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible, but I think we were, in my mind, what I made peace with is that we were totally exposed. If they hit us with a rocket, we all would have died. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you showed up to Ukraine when?
So I showed up actually at the beginning of February. So like February, I think 4th or 5th, it was my first night in country.
From the U.S.?
Yeah, from the U.S.
Okay.
I flew straight into Kyiv Boryspil Airport. None of my bags made it, unfortunately. Just me and my carry-on. But yeah, I moved there. So like I brought all my stuff, and I had an Airbnb for 3 months, and then I was going to buy a place. And the reason I moved there is because I was going to school, I was working, I was, very involved in the community, in my church, and I was just so busy. I had no time to myself at all. And I was like, why I'm like 20, I guess I was 25, but it was from like 22 to 25, I was doing all this. And I was like, why am I putting myself through this grind for what? For like a better job? Like, I don't even care about the job that I'm working anyways, And for more money, I'm like, I have enough money. So I was like, I'm just going to go somewhere where it's similar. It's got like a European culture, and somewhere that's, cheap and adventurous and, full of culture and stuff. So I decided on Ukraine in November of 2021 when I saw an article that Russia was stacking up on the border. I was like, that seems like something might happen there, and it's a place where I think I can assist, given my background in Ranger Regiment and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was there early February for 3 weeks. I went to school every day learning Ukrainian. I went to school online back at Charleston Southern. Just, did my classwork and stuff. And then I also was meeting people around Kyiv. So I was, I made a couple American friends. I hooked up with the Georgian Legion, Mamuka, like Maschiavelli, I think the commander's name was. I hooked up with them. And so I was helping train civilians. And the Sunday before the war started, I was training this group of civilians, which is where I met Travis. I was training this group of civilians, and this beautiful Ukrainian girl was there. And I was just watching her like interact with people. She spoke perfect English. And I was like, this is crazy. And I said to myself, and no lie, you can ask anyone at the Georgian Legion at the time. The next day I came in there and I said, I'm going to marry that girl. And yeah, that was the first time I ever met my wife.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I admire your commitment to the cause. Because someone in their early 20s isn't going to say, oh, yeah, same stuff that you said. Oh, I'm not so worried about the job or the advancement or the career or the money. I just want to have some good life experiences and go travel to some cool places and have that adventure you talked about.
Yeah.
But to others, the adventure is just having a bunch of fun. And in your mind, you see Russians stacking up on the border for war, and your idea of the adventure is to go defend a culture and a people that is foreign to you.
Mm-hmm.
And to prepare for that.
Yeah.
So you started learning Ukrainian, you started getting your feet on the ground and started meeting people, and that's admirable, man. I mean, that's very cool. There's not a lot of dudes out there that would have that mindset to be prepared ahead of time and to go be in place so that when the thing pops off, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What you did was admirable too, and the rest of the legionnaires who were there. Answering that call, leaving your life in America, which is admittedly, though busy, nice and cushy and easy. And, peaceful and loving and great. And to go out there, into that darkness and that void where you kind of have to accept that you will likely die at some point if you keep it up. So yeah, I mean, thank you for coming out there as well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
It's it's nice to hear that from someone I was with,
Yeah.
Turning back wasn't an option for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you felt the same way. Like, the attrition was tough to watch because you're like, oh, okay, this dude that I'm kind of like befriending and starting to hang out with, all of a sudden he's dropping off and these other dudes are dropping off. You're like, damn, man, like, what? Am I in the wrong spot? Like, you start to kind of question, like, okay, I mean, do they know something I don't? Am I missing something? And I just know at the time in my mind, I'm like, if I go back and we didn't do anything, what a waste of my retirement savings that I've spent to get here. What a waste of all the effort and time that the Ukrainians have given me up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
What a waste, man. And I can't walk back with that feeling that I was a waste or that I wasted people's time and energy. Like, the cause is more important than that.
So I didn't have a lot of those issues with like trusting people and then them leaving, or like getting to know someone and them leaving. I was there before with the Georgian Legion, and they were a means to an end, right? So I wanted to help the Ukrainian situation, and they were training civilians. So I threw my lot in with them, helped train civilians, and they had a plan for when the war broke out of who they would contact, how they would get weapons, what they would do. And so since they had that plan, I stuck with them, right? And that's also where I met Greg. Greg is our good friend, medic, Ukrainian citizen, also Canadian citizen, speaks perfect Russian and Ukrainian and English. Amazing dude, right? I met him at the Georgian Legion. He was buying all kinds of medical supplies to distribute to people he knew and to teach civilians about medicine. He was there at the training as well. And yeah, that's where I met all these people. So on the first day of the war, when it went down, everyone showed up at a certain place where we later showed up to be in process in the Foreign Legion in Kyiv. An SUV pulled up, like super old, like maybe Jeep Cherokee type vehicle, something like that, pulled up with a trunk full of literally Cold War storage, Soviet era AK-47s, smothered in Cosmoline. And we grabbed these weapons out, dude. One kid, he charges the AK to clear it, and he goes to release the charging handle, and you expect it to like slam into battery, and the gun just goes like, and just like the bolt stops like halfway forward. It's just so much packing grease on the dang things. So they show up with a trunk full of AKs and some Cold War storage AK ammunition. And so as fast as I can, I'm jamming my magazines full and wiping my gun down with like a spare T-shirt I had in my rucksack.
Jeez.
Greg shows up late though. He doesn't even get issued an AK. And we go over to Hostomel Airfield. And Mamuka's like, yeah, we need machine guns, we need rockets, we need grenades, we need more ammunition, we need more weapons. And I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea. And the war has started at this point. It's the first day of the war, so everyone's like kind of on edge, but no one knows what to expect. We hear the sound, dude, of a jet just ripping through the sky right over us, dude. And for a second, I was like, yeah, it's just a jet. And then it was like just the switch flip, dude. Veins, pure ice, massive explosion in the background, maybe like 400 meters away. And I'm like eyes go wide. I scream incoming. Mamuka just screams run. and everyone just takes off, dude. And that's when I was like that was when my character was like fully called into question. Like, am I gonna stay here and fight, or is this it for me? And that's when I started making decisions and got in this mindset where I was gonna leave, right? In those couple hours of just laying on the floor of a bombed out warehouse, just getting blown up by helicopters and planes, listening to infantry close in our position while I have a barely functioning AK-47 with 2 magazines and 20 other dudes with no support. I was 100% certain I was going to die. And I said, screw this, I'm not going to just die. And I started changing out my uniform into a pair of civilian clothes I had. I grabbed my passport and $2,000. I was going to just run out of there. And before I did that, though, I just had one thing in my head. I was like, let me just make the situation that I'm in right now a little bit better. And so I go to Mamuka. It's me, Mamuka, and the student Manuel, all in this bombed out building. No one can coordinate. We can't get out of the building because we jumped through a window full of broken glass. We can't get out without climbing on the glass shards. And I'm like, Mamuka, what do you need? He goes, I need to communicate with everyone. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to kick this door down. And so from the inside of this building, I'm kicking this door out. And I kicked while the helicopters were shooting. I kicked while the planes were blowing us up. And I just kicked and kicked and kicked. Maybe 200 times, dude. I kicked this door off its hinges. It was a derelict building, so it was like boarded up on the outside. Like it was like a reinforced door kicking from the inside. And I kicked the hinges off, dude. The handle wouldn't budge. And then Mamuka was able to coordinate. Once we kicked those hinges off, a bunch of people started to stream into the building. Because what we did to get into the building was like jump off this platform through a window down like 6 feet through a window full of broken glass. Like it was really treacherous. But we kicked this door off and people start streaming into the building. And Greg sees me and he sees me grabbing my passport and my $2,000. And he's like, hey man, get ready to fight. Like it's the first day of the war. Get ready to defend Ukraine. And I looked at him and I grabbed him by the shoulders and I was like, Greg, we're going to die. And he was like, he had like puppy dog eyes. He's like, no, we're not. It's okay. And he made me just like reevaluate the situation for a second and like assess what was happening. So in my mind prior to that, it was, we're being targeted by planes and helicopters, close air support. And there's small arms fire that's approaching our position that's maybe now only, a kilometer or two away. And what Greg says, I'm like, how is his mind so okay with what's happening right now? Because I am certain I'm going to die. So I take a second to reassess our actual situation and what I deem the danger level to be and what I think we can get out of. And I come to the same conclusion. It's that we are still going to die, but there's this individual who I'm barely friends with. I barely know him, Greg, who is willing to do that for his country when he could go back to Canada and just live a nice, peaceful life. And I said, well, if Greg's willing to do that with no military experience, no military background, just because it's his country, what would that make me, being a special operations soldier for 4 years with 2 deployments in Afghanistan? That makes me a coward. It makes me, it brings shame upon the Ranger Regiment. and it brings shame to my family as well, like the man that my dad raised me to be. And if there's people like that willing to defend their country, then I'll stand next to them and I'll try and help. That's when I made my choice.
It's an amazing thought process that you went through in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, about 4 hours.
Yeah, I didn't know that full story, and it just speaks so highly of who Greg was as a person.
Yeah.
And he had no rifle at that time either.
No rifle, no weapon at all.
So the dude is in the fight with no gun,
Yep.
just there to save lives, and be there to support his country. That, to me, is the essence and the spirit of Ukraine, the Ukrainian people, is Greg, who he was as a person, and what he did for our unit when he joined us, because you joined about a month before he did, because he was still... and we can get into that about the separation, but he was with some other dudes for about a month, and then he came and joined us after we were... after we came back from Zappo, I think.
Yeah, after the Zappo trip.
But having him on board with us was massive for just morale, just the spirit that it put in all of us to have him there.
Yeah.
So you have dudes that are the best trigger pullers. You have dudes that are the best tacticians. You have guys that are the best at all these different things, right? Obviously, Greg was a very skilled medic. But I think because there wasn't always a medical thing to do other than make sure everyone's kits were good and make sure there was always a flow of medical supplies going on, which he was always doing. And he was always loaning the services of his truck out because we were short on vehicles. So he was always helping with transportation of equipment and things. And he was doing aid and humanitarian stuff outside of our unit. So he was always, because he was in my team, and he was always asking me, hey, can I go drive over here? I'm going to get these supplies for these guys, and I'm picking them up and dropping them off. I'm like, oh, who's that for? He's like, oh, it's this other unit, and they need me to go pick it up. I'm like, sure, man, go ahead. And, I mean, he was working outside of our unit as well as working for our unit. So, obviously, he's with us for ops and stuff, but when we're back at the house, he's still finding work. And that, to me... You talk about people that were and were not special operations. Like that, to me, he embodied what like an operator should be. It's like always finding work, always maintaining positivity, always finding what the next best thing is. And in the fight, he helped turn you around on your mindset. Like an amazing guy.
Truly one of the best human beings I've ever met in my entire life. True patriot. Just, one of those people you meet and the room just lights up.
Exactly.
Like it's just a blast to be around him. And
he always said, hey-o. That was his greeting in text or in person. Hey-o. It was his Canadian thing, I guess. I don't know.
And no matter, like, a lot of the Ukrainians, they didn't like him because he'd been naturalized in Canada, and they were like, oh, you don't have to live here. You can just go back to your home and all that stuff. But it didn't bother him. Like, Ukraine was his country, man. And in Maidan in 2014, too, the bear coup, the Ukrainian secret police, Russian-backed secret police, picked him up and beat him to within an inch of his life. He barely survived. Like, cracked his skull and everything. And he went through that in 2014, and then he was back out there for more, in 2022.
I can't imagine what his parents were feeling. Just, there's so many Ukrainians like that fighting for their country, and so many parents they just want their kid to be safe. But they understand it's a tough situation to be in. And I think that's what makes the Ukrainian people so hardy and so resilient is that they want the best for their children just like anyone else, but they understand like what kind of sacrifice is required to fight for freedom and independence. And I think this is my opinion, but I think that's some of what we've lost in the U.S. is we have the comforts of being where we're at and having the country that we have, and I'm so grateful that we have it.
Yeah.
But with that comfort comes complacency and comes the lack of understanding of what it takes to have true resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And not just Greg, but all of the Ukrainians, I admire so much that they are who they are as a people. And the influence that they made on me was, I know you've got a couple things that you learned, but one of the things I learned is that we, from our NATO American training, can bring a lot of organizational structure to the ops, can bring a lot of tactical knowledge, can bring a lot of structure in terms of like, okay, this is the op they want us to run. And they're like, go ahead and do it. And it's like, well, let's think about it. Like, what is our medical plan if something happens? How are we getting inserted? What's our exfil strategy? Like, let's talk through some of this so that we all understand. Do we have radios? What channel are we on? Like, let's go through the procedures, at least at the basic level, just so we understand how many days are we going for. At the very beginning, they would say, no questions, get in the truck and go. And it's like, dude, do I need a jacket? Like, what's the deal here? So I think that's the value we brought, is to structure some of those ops. And we got pretty organized there at the end.
Yeah, in the end, for sure.
Maybe a little too much from the Ukrainians' point of view. They wanted us to just get out there and get in the fight.
Yeah.
So we overanalyzed some things, but I know we brought structure and value because we started building our own intel packages and things like that and gathering information that they didn't even have and putting together. So I don't want to dwell on that, but that's the value I think we brought. The things that the Ukrainians brought, for those listening, we obviously were hybrid units where we had Ukrainian foreign counterparts all kind of blended together.
Yeah.
So what the Ukrainians brought was just that fighting spirit. Was, dude, you don't have close air support. You don't have artillery. You don't have all the cool kit. You don't have, I like your t-shirt, courage over kit.
Yeah.
Because you don't have all the stuff, man. Just shut up and get in the fight.
Yeah. And that's what I learned, as well. Like, that's the difference between an infantryman, right, and a quote-unquote special operator. And that's one of the reasons I don't like saying I was in special operations. I was an infantryman first, right? That's the thing that Rangers have that really no other special operations unit has. We operate just as an infantry unit. We can operate as low as the platoon or the squad or the team even in some Ranger units, and we can operate up to as many as the full regiment, which that's a scalable package that no other special operations unit has. They don't train to work. All the Navy SEALs on all the SEAL teams, they don't train to work together and do one mission together, right? That's something that Rangers do train to do, to put boots on the ground and be an infantry unit and, as cliche as it sounds, lead the way, right?
Yeah.
Just be a good infantryman, which encompasses not having the best of the best equipment, even though Rangers have great equipment, right? In Ukraine, I had my AK with 2 magazines, and I looked up at a hind that was vectoring on me, and I just looked at it, and I flipped the AK off safe to fire, and I looked at it more, and I was like, yeah, it's not worth it. I don't want to make him shoot at me if he's not going to already. But yeah, like it's the willingness to get out there, right? It's when I went over to Ukraine with no plan besides, help and learn in early February. And what happens when the war starts? Well, I don't know. I'll wait for someone to call me and tell me where to go to get my weapon. Well, what if there's no cell service? Well, then I'll run to the location. Like, just do it. Just get out there. Be courageous.
Yeah.
Like, as much as the plan can help, the plan can also hinder, right? When there is no, like, what's our plan for medical support? Don't get shot.
Yeah, for real.
There is no extract. There's no medic on the ground. There's no hospital, and we have no way to pick you up. So good luck, and like get out there and take the fight to the enemy. Or what's your comms plan? We don't have comms. Like we'll go to the frontline units and we'll try and tell them you're out there. Hopefully they pass it on to their relief.
Yeah.
When you come back. But that's that. You just got to get out there and you have to kill the enemy. And that's what they were doing. That's what they taught us, and that's what they were good at. And they were good at holding the line too. They would stay in those positions. The whole first 2 months of the war when they were assaulting Kyiv, month and a half of the war, those dudes were on the line nonstop. They never got rotated back.
Yeah. Well, there was no one to rotate them.
Exactly.
Right? That was it. They were spread so thin. Like, that was it. There is no one else. There's no relief coming. Like, this is it.
Yep. And that's why the Foreign Legion, that's where we were most important in the early war, is we brought some knowledge and some experience that maybe those frontline soldiers didn't have. And what they lacked in knowledge and experience, they made up for it in courage, right? And patriotism.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would say, right, oh, they're sending us on suicide missions. No, they were using the soldiers who had the experience to do the missions that the people without experience couldn't do. They were asking us to clear the houses that were full of Russians. They were asking us to go into the Russian-infested city and do mounted to do urban operations.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had an issue with the stuff in Irpin.
Never.
I never. I liked working in Irpin.
Yeah, that was great.
That sounds kind of weird to say out loud, but
no, it was good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that came across, but
it was a good AO.
It was. And I mentioned this in one of my couple episodes ago, but it was a very clearly defined boundary line too. It was very weird to me. Mm-hmm. And I know if you've studied warfare, like front lines are kind of zigzaggy, right?
Yeah.
They just naturally occur wherever, but it was just that University Street all the way down.
Yep.
And but working in that space, I liked that because in a way it was simple. I mean, house to house, we can talk about percentages and all. I don't care about that. I just care. It's like we knew any dude that wasn't us anywhere there in that town, because all the civilians had pretty much left. Mm-hmm. Civilians were there. They were in their houses, and it's old people. So you know the difference when you're looking through your, well, we didn't have optics then, but you're looking down your sights, and you're like, oh, there's an 80-year-old guy. Well, they're like, okay, that's obviously not a combatant, but so anyone other than us was a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And so it made it pretty straightforward.
In some ways, yeah. In other ways, not so much. I know my second mission in Irpin, so my first mission was nothing. It was going to the release point, getting smashed by artillery, and then running away. That was my first mission. My second mission, though, was like a 3-day long debacle that had most of the stuff we did in Irpin, where we set up those recon positions along Universiteska Street. What was it, like cat, squirrel, and like elephant or something?
Yeah. Well, I know there was cat and squirrel for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was an elephant or not, but
whatever they were.
Was the first one, was that the one where we had the rockets? Was that the same op?
No.
Okay.
No. What was the one where you had the rockets?
The one you said you were in. You were telling me earlier before we started recording.
Yeah,
we were running from the rockets. You said you were in them. Was that the one?
Yeah.
Can we pull this up, John?
Yeah.
This is good for people to listen to and watch. It's the black video in this folder. Is that it?
No, that's not it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
All right. Raise the volume on that so people listening can hear it. Or pause real fast. Let me set this up. So my team had just finished our op. It was our first time in Irpin, and we were walking our way out of there. There was a staging point where Ukrainians were basically sleeping. So I guess Ukrainian infantry, we didn't know who they were, but we were just our Yukersov, Ukrainian special operations guy, was our guide into the town because we didn't know where anything was, and so he guided us through to wherever stuff was, so we knew where to work. And then on our way out of the op, we went back to that staging point where the Ukrainians were at, and we were just down our gear, drink some water, just hang out, and then we're going to walk back to all the way back to the truck. So as we're doing that, we're talking, we hear explosions in the distance, and they're gradually getting closer to us. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know, like, hey, they're walking this stuff into us. You know, if there's consistent explosions in the distance and they stay in the distance, hey, whatever. But as they get closer and closer, you're like, maybe we should get out of here. And so that's what's going on. So go ahead and hit that play. Just raise the volume a bit, John.
Yeah. Are they our missiles?
Ken talking.
It's ours. Yes, it's Ukrainian.
So those rounds are landing right where I am.
And I didn't know that till today.
Yeah.
You guys were in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Shit. So, enemy trying to hit our missiles, huh?
The car alarm, that thing's about 50 yards away from us, that car. So the impact is so much that the car alarms are going off.
It was so scary. That was one of the scary. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Let's get close, man.
Yeah, it's getting real close.
Turn that up a little bit.
Yeah. Hey.
Everything is okay?
Yeah. We're gonna head back to
Where?
the underpass.
Which
to the
route?
trucks.
Which route?
The same route we came.
Okay.
So we have
link
extraction
up with
point.
your guys.
All right,
Yes.
pause it real
We'll
fast.
get to the trucks.
So Ken's saying to the Ukrsoft guy, hey, we're going to head back to the truck. Like, there's no reason for us to just sit here and wait for shit to blow us up. So,
Yeah.
and the Ukrainian guy's like, okay, well, I guess if you want to go. Like, well, yeah, we want to go. We don't want to come under fire. So go ahead and keep playing it.
That's okay.
Are you coming with us?
That's too far away.
Oh, yeah, man. Are you coming with us?
You know what? If you're not lucky, you'll get it anyway. If you're lucky, you won't get it anyway.
All right, hey. I'll see you next time, brother. Okay. All right, guys, saddle up. Let's move it out. All right, fuck sakes. Yeah, let's go. Rock and roll. Fucking shit, my fucking ass. You all right? Yeah. Oh, my fucking ass.
Oh man.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
So
Fuck's
those
sake.
initial 4 rounds were right on top of us. So I heard the artillery coming in. It was only my second, first mission was Hostomel, where I just got exploded by planes and helicopters for 4 hours. Second mission was that, where I just 4 rounds of, I don't know, 82 or 88 or I don't know, 122 maybe, right on top of us, dude. Like dirt flying into the hole that I was taking cover in. Like dudes scurrying for cover. We're yelling, let's get out of here. They're reloading. Trying to find our time when we get out of the holes and make a run for it. And so Kevin was saying, a Ukrainian dude jumped out of the hole between rounds to put his jacket on because it was freezing outside. And he said the round landed right on top of him, freaking vaporized, just gone. And Kevin, he has the damage to prove it, His radio got sliced by a piece of shrapnel, and his sling on his weapon got cut in half, and it was on fire. It was it was crazy, dude. He was running, and his weapon just fell off of him. He's like, "What the?" And the 2 ends were burned, they were on fire.
That dude's got 9 lives, man.
Yeah, Kevin.
Because I remember he had been pegged in the back of his plates. He actually took a round.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
Somewhere in Irpin.
Oh, really?
Or not Mashun. I think it was Irpin, but
No, yeah, with they walked straight into the L-shaped ambush, and everyone survived. They had bullet holes in their clothing, but they all lived.
yeah, it's miraculous. But just to take one right in the back of the plates,
Yeah.
you're glad you wore plates that day, man.
Yeah.
But those. So back to this video. You can see it. It's walking closer and closer, and so it's really hard to see. Maybe for those that were watching, but we're in this courtyard, and so we're like, "Hey, we're gonna go," and are you coming with us? And he's like, "If you're lucky, you don't get hit. If you're not so lucky, then you get hit." And so he's just happy to stand there. And so, we're like, "Okay, we're gonna be a little more intelligent about this. There's no reason to stay here where we know they're walking into us." And so, as we walk out of that courtyard to turn left, you can see a bright red flash. and it's right behind us, man. And I mean, the whatever debris that was flying hits Ken in the ass and knocks him over.
Dang.
Devin gets knocked over from the shockwave. Like, he trips on something, he falls over. I trip and fall. Like, it was like it was close enough that we all fell over.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh shit, like we're okay, we made the right call to get out of here. And so then we're running down the highway, down the road to where the truck is, and that run sucked, man. I mean, that was full. It had been a long time since I was in a full combat load with a pack on my back, and we're having to sprint. That run sucked.
And I had Sean there, and Sean had already said to us before the operation, he was like, guys, I'm not young. You know, I got a little pudge. I'm not like I used to be. And it's like, what, 1.5 kilometers, maybe a kilometer and some change back to under the bridge where you can take cover.
Yeah.
Like, have some serious overhead cover. And I'm just hauling in full kit, dude, just smoked. Dax is keeping up, you know, right behind me. We make it under the bridge, and he's like, where's Sean? Because it's like his big brother or whatever. He's like, where's Sean? And I'm like, he's out there, don't worry. You know, Lou and everyone else come streaming in. Dax's like, where's Sean? I'm starting to get worried. I'm like, oh no. And Sean comes huffing around the corner. He's like, I almost dropped my back plates, man. I told you I couldn't run like that anymore. It was so funny, dude. And Lou, in his Ukrainian accent, it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. He goes, "The fat bastard, suka." he's like, he's walking, blat. It's like, Sean was like, that was too much of a run for me. I had to walk, boys. I thought they were gonna catch up. And he said like a drone was following him or whatever. The artillery was like, you know, a couple rounds or whatever landed nearby. He was like, it was chasing me. You know,
we had a similar thing. For our team, our Ukrainian counterpart that was attached to us was a bigger guy.
Yeah.
And so we run like, they're walking these rockets into us. And so it's like, let's get out of here. And so we start hauling ass. And then, so we're at the truck, and it's like 20 minutes later after we'd already been at the trucks.
Yeah.
And he comes walking up. He goes, why you run? And we're like, well, the artillery was coming to get us. And he goes, it's just rockets.
Yeah.
The way they view stuff is so hilarious. It's not just rockets. It's just death coming. Like, let's get out of here.
Yeah. It was funny, man. But no, for the most part, they made good decisions around the artillery. It was just like, sometimes you couldn't stop it. Like, you were just in the open. You couldn't do anything about it. So why worry? You know?
Yeah. Well, that was part of that courage thing where they taught us some things about just being resilient in the fight. It's like a lot, and we have to keep in mind a lot of these dudes had been fighting since 2014. And so very experienced fighters, very used to artillery coming down on them.
Yeah.
And for us Americans, we're not used to artillery coming down on us. Maybe you'll get mortared here or there. You know, a couple lobs, couple frog things. What are those frog things called? But a couple deals like things lobbing over. But consistent, like, you know, the whistle. And
a targeted artillery barrage was something I never experienced.
No.
And that was life-changing.
Yeah.
That was like make grown men pee in their pants, life-changing. And then, you know, some Ukrainians are out there dealing with that every single day.
Right.
And that stuff can bring an unprepared individual to their knees in seconds. Yeah. Like just sitting in a hole, listening to the artillery that's meant for you coming in and being like, if this hits in my hole, I'm dead. But I just hope it doesn't hit in my hole. And that's all you can do is, you know, say a silent prayer and hope it doesn't just barrel into you.
We had, Ken's got some footage of this on his channel, but we had an op where a BMD is just hammering our building that we're in.
Yeah.
And it's just hammering the side of the building. And I'm watching as, like, the side of the building is getting blown off. And I'm like, this is, and you feel the whole ground shakes, like the impact, like your chest has, like, shockwaves going through it. And you're like, dude, I don't like this.
Yeah, you're like, this
I don't want to be here.
Like,
yeah.
Is it, but, and then you ask yourself, you're like, is there anything that I could do right now to improve my situation? And you just look around, you're like, no. and you just
Yeah.
go back to getting hammered with, whatever it is.
Well, obviously we had to get out of there, but the one saving grace is that the buildings are pretty robust. I mean, they're heavy concrete.
Yeah, they're like some serious Soviet engineering, dude. Like,
yeah.
It's meant to be a bunker.
Yeah. I mean, all the buildings feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like we had, I remember one of the buildings, we didn't want to be silhouetted in the window, and so we wanted to put a little keyhole in the thing. I mean, it's like a foot and a half of brick.
Like solid concrete.
We're trying to chisel our way so we can have a keyhole to like put some binos through or something. I mean, you're working for like, you're sweating your ass off. You're working for 3 hours to cut a hole in the building. You're like, just forget this. It sucks.
It was, and dude, we were trying to bust down a door to an apartment, and it was like, it's like a castle freaking moat, dude. Like
the drawbridge.
We had power tools up there. Like we had charged batteries and power tools. We cut the hinges off the first door, and then take like a crowbar or a sledge to the locking mechanism. And there's like 3 steel what are they?
Plates.
Deadlocks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like 3 of them in a row. It's like a bank security vault or something. And we're like bashing this in for like 2 hours. We finally take it down, and then there's a door inside of the first door, and we took the old door and used it as a battering ram to batter down the second door. It was like, it took like 4 hours to get into 2 apartment rooms at the top of this building, and it was funny, man.
Yeah, the breaching was a whole thing, man, because you got people that show up like, I was a breacher and stuff. Not for this, you weren't.
No,
we don't have demo. We don't have any of the cool breaching tools. Like one dude, I forget who it was. It was remember our safe house in Irpin, like the 4 or 5 story apartment building? We mainly occupied the first 2 floors.
Yeah.
That was like a good learning lesson in breaching in that area. This one guy had a really long crowbar, and instead of breaching the door, he chiseled into the concrete around the metal frame and basically just ripped the whole door frame out of the wall.
Oh my god!
And he did that in about 3 minutes. And I was like, whoa, that is so much faster than the axing we've been doing.
Yeah.
Like on the door.
Yeah.
And that was a lot faster. But so then we just started ripping door frames out of the walls, and that was
my wife said
easier.
My wife said she helped secure you guys a crowbar.
She did. More than that. She got a crowbar, an axe, and a sledgehammer.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing is we got those basically at the end of her pin.
Her story about the crowbar was funny.
No knock on her, though. But
no, yeah.
It was just that's when we got it. What was the story about the crowbar?
She was like, man, we really need a crowbar. And they were like sold out everywhere. Like everyone had gotten their crowbars and gotten out of Ukraine. And I don't know why, but they were all sold out. And she's like, man, we really need this crowbar for this unit that's out there. They're fighting around irpin. They need this stuff to breach rooms. And this guy was like, oh, okay, my ex-wife have crowbar. And like broke into his ex-wife's backyard and like broke into her shed and got this crowbar out for my wife to give to you guys.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Did she know that you were in the same unit?
Yeah, she knew.
Oh, okay.
She knew,
Made the connection. All right. That's funny. So the crowbar we got was some guy's ex-wife's stolen crowbar from her shed.
Yeah, she fled the country. The ex-wife fled the country, and the guy was like, "Oh, she doesn't need it." Like,
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel bad in some ways because to do our job, we did have to cause damage.
Yeah.
And we had to breach doors. I remember doing some scouting around one of the building. I think it was Cat had an underground garage, and we were searching for any kind of tools, just anything to be able to get in through the doors. Also, just the hunger thing too, just trying to find food and water and supplies and stuff because they didn't cycle us back. So we go out there with a day and a half of food because they're like, "Oh, you'll be back for a day," and then we're out there for 4 days. It's like, okay, well, we need to start looking for scrounging resources and stuff. But there was a kind of a doomsday prep vehicle we found down there. Like, why didn't they take this? It was like a badass 4Runner that had the lights, it had the extra fuel cans on it, it had water, it had a big bag of tools, and we're like, this is the ride, man. Like, if we have the keys for this, like, this is it. But couldn't find keys for it, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But at that time, we weren't being inserted by vehicle, so we were doing the 11-mile march just to start the op, and we were like, we need wheels, man. But we found a little axe like this thing, and at the time, that was like the best thing that anyone had, and so we used that axe to try to breach these doors.
Okay. Yeah, that wouldn't have been fun. If we didn't have those power tools, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we got in, so that apartment on Universitetska Street that was facing out, there was like an apartment that had kind of like a side angle on the street. And so we broke into the doors upstairs there, and there was like 2 beautiful apartments, and everyone's like, I'm living in Kyiv after this, like, because the apartments are killer and they're so cheap too.
Yeah.
But our sniper set up, and he found some activity around this building, this yellow building, and a Russian truck came up and delivered food. And so we were like, there's probably like a squad or like a platoon there, like if they're delivering food to this building. And so that was like our target. Like our goal was to get over to that building and kill people in there. But the Ukrainian strategy at the time was to harass, disrupt, and not really destroy. Like we would try to destroy vehicles, but we were just trying to thin out the Russian forces on that line because they couldn't resupply. Like they had that big traffic jam. The Ukrainians were smashing all their stuff that was coming in. So if we could just harass and disrupt, that would be enough to force them to withdraw from that area. And that's what the Ukrainians did. So Vadim didn't want to risk us going up there to kill these dudes. But man, we wanted to so bad. And we drove Vadim to his wit's end one night. When I say we, I mean the Legionnaires. Like, we got a call at like 1 a.m. in the morning, like, hey, position cat, there's Russians on position cat, is what the report was. And so we go up there, and it's like pitch black. We're all in our night vision. Whoever had it was wearing it, maybe like 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah, let's be clear. At the time in irpin, maybe 3 or 4 dudes in the whole unit had night capabilities.
Yeah, I had some good tubes though, dude. Sean sold me a good pair when he left after the artillery strike. He was like, yeah, man, I told you I was too pudgy. And so I was like, let me buy all your kit off you, because he had a good pair of night vision. So it was like him and Dags, and then we had like a couple pairs of French night vision, like old French night vision. We were walking down this alleyway, dude, covered in broken glass. It's like a scene from like Call of Duty or something, where it's like you're just crunching on this glass in the darkness, like there's no other sound, just
yeah.
And it's like penetrating the darkness as we break the glass underneath our boots and stuff.
You're the loudest thing out there.
Yeah. And so in like the most Call of Duty inspired moment of my life, there was like a large burst of like artillery and machine gun fire. And I'm like, run. we just like ran across the glass, like, so sprinting when there was noise, right? And then remaining silent when nothing was happening. It was like the mission in Call of Duty when you can only pull the trigger on the sniper when the artillery's falling or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But it was funny. We get up there, no Russians, no change at what we had known to be like the baseline of activity in that area. It was just like there were no Russians here for sure. And we talked to the dude who said there were Russians. He was like just so out of it, so tired. And Vadim was pissed. He was like, we came out here at 1 a.m. for this call, and you know, these idiots over here, they don't know what they're doing. And so Kevin gets in Vadim's ear. He's like, you know, we know a place where the Russians are. Do you want to go get them? And Vadim's at his wit's end. He's like, yeah, let's go get them. And so we're the yellow building is our target, and we're creeping, dude. We're just creeping through these backyards. Silent, no dogs barking, no nothing. Probably like 2.5 blocks maybe past Universitetska. So we're like in the enemy territory. We're like in the Russian territory. and it starts to get bright out. Dudes start flipping their nods up, putting their nods away. I flip my nods up on my head finally, and I'm walking, and I look to my right to clear this corner. Nothing there. As I look to my left, there's a hole in the fence that I'm walking alongside. And through this hole, I'm looking dead in the eyes of a uniformed Russian soldier. Young man, probably like anywhere from, I would say, like 17 to 21 maybe. Like light complexion, no real facial hair, even though he hadn't shaved. You could see like parts of like grizzle on his face, maybe 5 meters away this dude was. And in that split second, right, I took in all of his facial features. I took in his disposition towards me, that he was not in a position to kill me, right? He had no weapon in his hands. And just like the humanity of him, right? He was just like a kid like me 5 years ago, right? That was me 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was just like a look of pure, it went from a look of satisfaction, of being on guard at night, of about to be getting off guard, just a regular, contented, satisfactory look, to a face contorted look of pure, unadulterated horror, right? As he saw me through this fence, wearing full kit, night vision, OpsCore helmet, kitted to the nines compared to this guy, with my weapon at the low ready on him, right? And he turned around, or he started to turn around to go grab his weapon. And I'll never forget that face, dude. And I killed him, right? Extremely quickly and with extreme prejudice, shooting, starting from his hips all the way up to his face, like just killed him outright. But I will never forget that look that he gave me, and knowing that he was just like me in another world, right? In another dimension, me and him, we would have been friends, dude. Like, we were both out there on this adventure, right? Of war, of this dangerous adventure. And 7 years ago, I would have been that kid getting off guard duty, right? Not knowing any better, just sucking it up, right? Content with life, content to be there. Even if things were a little crappy, right? And then some dude, just ex-special operations soldier, comes around the corner, and I'm just totally taken off guard, right? But only because of my training in the U.S. military did I know any better, right? Through all those mistakes that I made, through all those things that I learned, was I able to beat him that day. But it just as easily could have been reversed, and we just as easily could have been friends, you know, in another life. And it's just that's one reason why war is terrible, right? And it is terrible in every way. But it must be, right? War must be while people are willing to stand up for something. And those kinds of things must be to display like the true character of people like Greg and people like Dan Swift and all of our buddies fighting over there. You know, you don't get that high level of character and moral accountability while you're living in the U.S., playing video games and, you know, living an easy life.
I've heard you tell this story a couple times, and I appreciate your candor. It's a really up close and personal moment in your life.
Yeah.
And I know that it'll probably stay with you forever.
Certainly.
because it's one thing to be on a team that gets some kills, or to be on a part of a rocket ambush or something a little less connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's another to be 5 meters away from someone. You lock eyes with a person. You remember his disposition, his facial features, if he had stubble on his face. I mean, it's a pretty detailed accounting and a memory of what happened. Do you feel a sadness having done that, having been in that moment?
I don't want to say that anything I did in that moment affects me negatively at all, because it doesn't. It has only affected me in how I view war. Like it used to be just like an adventure. It used to just be like stamping my own man card, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way it's affected me. I would have done it again 100 times over, right? He was following his orders and I was following mine, and we were on different sides, and that's what happens in war. You know, you do your job, and you do it well. So I wouldn't change anything, and it's not like it haunts me in my dreams. Like I haven't dreamed about it one single time.
Yeah.
Right? I've never seen that face at night. I can bring it up in my head when I recall that memory.
Sure.
But it's not something that haunts me. It's just something that changed my perspective. And it is saddening, right? It is saddening that I had to take this young man away from his family and away from all the experiences he might have had. And you know, when I think about people like Greg, who, you know, his parents never got to see him get married. His parents never got to see him, you know, raise a family.
Yeah.
There's so many memories that were missed out on. I'm extremely sad about that. I think that young individuals should have had all those opportunities. But he was there for the same reason I was, you know, and he was the same, you know, he had the same level of character, as far as I know, that I did, right? Of being there to support what he viewed as a righteous cause, or as a way to stamp his man card, or, you know, and it has nothing to do with geopolitics or any of this, you know, NATO proxy war BS. Like on the ground, there's none of that. And that's why it irks me a lot when people say, oh, we're sending so much aid to Ukraine, but it's, you know, such a corrupt country, and the U.S. is corrupt, and so money's getting kicked back to the Democrats, and, you know, Zelensky's skimming off the top and whatever. While all of those things may be true, that has no bearing on the fact that if, of the money we send, if one soldier on the ground gets helped, that to me makes it a worthy cause and a worthy expenditure. Because if, you know, homeboy Vlad flying down the bombed out road to Bakhmut to defend his grandma's house, who lives in Kramatorsk, you know, 45 minutes away, the next big city to get hit after Bakhmut, if he gets a javelin, that makes all that aid worth it. Or if one dude gets a thermal monocular that saves his life one day, that makes all that aid worth it, in my opinion. Because it's not about the geopolitics. It's not about the corrupt people. It's about the guys on the ground. It's about the 18-year-old with the rifle. It's about those men and women defending their homes.
I love that viewpoint, man. And you and I haven't really talked at length about this, and I know that other guys that we've been with have pretty much a similar viewpoint. I think we've all come to the same conclusion, having been there, independently. And then when we come together and talk about it, it's interesting to find that you have almost an identical viewpoint that I have about it, that it's about the dude on the ground, and that's the cause. And and I'm using my own thoughts and words, but while you taking that kid's life, I can say that it's a sad thing.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't
Certainly. Yeah.
He didn't get to have the life experiences that we would have liked to have seen for a young kid to have. But what, in taking of his life, what amount of lives in Ukraine were saved? What amount, when we saw Irpin, and I don't mean to fast forward too far into the whole story, but when we go back to Irpin in May and we see the liberation of that town, where there are kids playing on the street, they're riding their bicycles, couples are walking in the park, people are eating food that's sold on the street corners again. Irpin is urbanized once again, and people are living there.
Yeah.
How many of those lives, and we know civilians were still living in Irpin. It's beyond me why they were doing that.
Yeah.
And I've got a story I haven't told yet, but of just seeing these people in bombed out buildings standing around an oil drum that's on fire, they're burning whatever in there to stay warm. Remember Irpin when we were freezing our balls off, and there's people just living in bombed out buildings and not leaving.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many of their lives were saved because of your action, you know? And so for me, that's like the justification. That's the rationalization. It's like, I don't want to have to take life. I don't want that to happen. I'd like for all of those young kids to be able to grow up and have a happy life. But if it means that babushka down the road or that family down the road is going to be able to come back to their home and be safe and live their life, well, that's what we're there to do. That's the job.
So a lot of the time, do you think you equate your actions with like a specific result? For example, like what we did in Ukraine led to, these measurable improvements or measurable outcomes?
That's a good question. I think it has to. I think I have to. I think what does a old soldier look back at? Like, you want to know that what you did meant something. There was meaning to it. And what was the outcome? Everyone killed each other and went home and nobody was better off for it. What's the point of that? Then why did we do it? We just all stamped our man cards and went home?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people lost their lives over us just proving our point for our own ego. Hubris, it's terrible. And as you said, the more experienced soldier, I think there's something deeper. There's something more to the ethos of who you are as a warrior than just stamping your man card. Mm. And so when I look at it, and for me it was a powerful moment to go back to Irpin and see that place had been liberated. It's like, oh, this is what it was all for. And you don't get to see that. You do a tour in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I was in Iraq. You don't get to see that. You go in, you do your thing, and you leave, but you don't see a place that was once terrorized and under heavy barrage of artillery and everything's destroyed and on fire, and all of a sudden you go back 3 months later and it's thriving and there's people living there and they're rebuilding and you can see glass being put back on windows. And that, I don't know where else that has happened in such a short amount of time, where you can see the results of your efforts. Mm-hmm. And by no stretch of the imagination can I say, like, the International Legion, we participated because there were many other units than just us, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But by no stretch of the imagination can we say that we stopped the Russian advancement in Irpin. They did not make it to Kyiv. Why? Because of part of what we contributed to. Mm-hmm. And it's not a brag, it's just saying we were there along with many thousands of other people, but everything was spread pretty thin, man. And we didn't have any support. Like you said, there is no medevac, there is no good comm plan, there is none of that stuff, and yet they did not advance into Kyiv, and that was their plan. Take over Kyiv, and now you own the country, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, was a massive reward, to know that Kyiv remains safe today as a part of what the International Legion did.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely right in a lot of ways. The way I tend to think of it, though, is there's like this big overarching plan, right? And we take very little part in changing it. Like, I probably could have not killed that soldier and things would have happened the same, you know? And it's not me just being like dejected or downright depressed over it. It's just like, it's hard for me to see how my little piece played into the overall, you know?
Well, there's that butterfly effect, right? We don't know what the effects of today will impact 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, right? But we know that the overall effort, like I'm going to tell you to dig a 12-foot trench, 6 feet wide and like 50 feet long. Go ahead and get started. You know, here's a shovel.
Yeah.
If you do that by yourself, it's an insurmountable task. You'll feel so overwhelmed by it, right? But if I throw 50 other guys into that with you, it's like, what did my one shovel do?
Yeah.
In
I
terms
guess
of
you're
digging
right.
that trench,
Yeah.
it's like you were there though. You contributed to that digging. It's like the loss of that one kid, the movement of flanking this one unit to prevent their advancement, or this one little thing was a contribution in the massive total.
Yeah.
That prevented Kyiv's invasion. So while you can't say you were the liberator of Irpin and you were the hero of the whatever, you know, like very few people ever get that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for the most part, it's one individual dude on the ground that's a contributing factor to thousands of people trying to do the same thing. And that overall, hopefully, tips the scales in favor of victory over defeat.
No, you're definitely right. Definitely right. It's just hard for me to see it, you know?
Well, I think it's also hard for people to accept and take credit for something.
Well, that's true,
and there's a humility there, I understand. But, yeah, it's not a brag. It's not saying anything, anyone, we're more awesome or you're more awesome than anyone else. It's just saying, like, we were there, we participated in a thing, and ultimately there was victory in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing.
Hopefully it leads to victory in the whole country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a break. It's
All
a good time to do a break, and then we'll come back and pick it up.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think we covered her pin pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
At least from a high level. You know, there's a lot more stories we have from there. What were your thoughts about the dudes in the Legion once we got operational, like the people we were working with? How did you like the dynamic in the teams and stuff?
So it was tough because there was no rank structure. If you were on the team, you had equal rank to everyone else on the team, and the only rank was given to someone who could speak Ukrainian, for us at least.
Yeah.
I know it's different in other places, but it makes sense in some ways. In other ways, it doesn't, because the Ukrainian that was in charge of us was not willing to work in an American way on an American and British team. So it was kind of, you know, led to some heads butting and stuff. I will say, though, once we got operational, every dude there was meant to be there. Like, we had a singular purpose, which was to kill the enemy and not listen to our Ukrainian commander. No, but we had a single purpose. We were out there to kill the enemy. But these volunteers coming over, right? We wanted rank. We wanted pay. More pay than they were giving us. We wanted all these things. And the Ukrainians weren't willing to provide it for us because, A, they had no idea how to hold, or they couldn't. They just can't hold people accountable for what they say they are. So you get a dude who comes in and says, oh, I was a sergeant in the U.S. military. I want to be, you know, a platoon sergeant here. Like, that's how my experience is gonna change things. Like, I'm worthy enough to be a platoon sergeant. They don't speak Russian or Ukrainian. They've never worked with those militaries before, and here these people are demanding to hold this rank. And this isn't the first time in history that that's ever happened before, right? In the American Revolution, Congress was sending Washington these French guys, and they're like, yeah, we're military officers. All these guys from the West Indies and even from mainland France were coming to Washington staff through Congress with rank and pay. And Washington had to write Congress and be like, stop sending me these people because they don't speak English. Like, if they don't speak English, how can we integrate them into the Continental Army? Like, get them out of here. And in general, they had a very poor experience with these French volunteers because they were the same thing as foreign legionnaires were in Ukraine, inflating their service and saying, we deserve this, we deserve that, and make me a commander without speaking the native language. So I understand why the Ukrainians wouldn't give us that. But at the same time, I do wish that we could have at least held like up to E4 rank within our own teams, just to have some actual delegated authority to tell people what to do sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed with irpin, there was essentially zero trust from the Ukrainians towards us. Mm-hmm. We were just meat puppets. Like, get in the truck and go, no questions, let's just go, no planning, no discussion, and that was how it was going to be. Once a lot of the riffraff kind of faded out, and then we had the teams that were pretty stable, still had shuffling around because we were short a guy or we needed somebody left because of some whatever. So you still have some personnel changes, but for the most part, especially once we were down in Zappo, things were pretty solid. Mm-hmm. So we go to Zappo and then come back. What they started giving us was a little more window into the way things were planned, the way things were happening. So I know, like, we would be taken by the commander to the ops.
Yeah,
bunker,
or the jock,
yeah,
or
whatever they called it. Yeah, exactly. Talk, jock, COC, whatever.
Yeah.
So all that stuff. So they would take us there, and they'd have the TVs up, they'd have the drone footage, and we're like, "Oh, you guys have had this the whole time? Like, you have all these assets on they have like the GPS tablet and all the stuff, and so they have all the mapping, and they have known enemy positions mapped on there." I'm like, "Oh." Like, we thought you guys had nothing, man, and so you have had this the whole time, you're just not telling us. And so I didn't care so much about the rank because that didn't matter. At the point, we knew we were privates. We knew that we were foreigners. They're not going to give us secret information.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I did want to have information that would help us operationally to know, we know there's a machine gun nest over there or something like that. Is important for us to know on the ground.
Yeah.
So once they started taking us there and we could start taking some notes, start getting some imagery and stuff, then that made things a lot more effective because you talked earlier about a suicide mission. There was one that they told us, hey, this is a good mission. You can go do this. And I won't get into the details of it, but it literally was a suicide mission. I mean, it was to walk... Well, I'll get into it. It was to walk like 15 clicks behind the enemy line and to wait at an intersection completely exposed. No trees, no trench, no nothing, just completely flat T intersection, and then just wait for a tank and shoot it with a rocket and then run back 15 clicks back to the front line. It's like, dude, I mean, I'm all down for the fight, but like...
Yeah, that's pretty
Is
intense.
anyone, if we get in the shit, is someone going to come help us? No, it's just you. And, if you, like, come on, man. Like, let's put together a plan that makes sense.
Dude, I was willing to do something like that, though, when, like, especially just getting hammered with artillery all the time. I was like, put me on a 30K long walk to kill those dudes who are sending these shells in. Like, I will do it. I'll be out there 3 days, no water, no food. I don't care. Like, just let me go walk and kill these dudes. Tell me where they are and tell me where I can find them.
Well, that was my thing. Is I told them, I was like, we don't know when something might come by, so we're just sitting there out in the complete exposed flat farmland for how long? Like, get us some drone footage, get us an actual target that we can move on. Now we've got something. Now we know where we're going, why we're going there, what's there, what level of munitions we need to destroy it. Like, we have information, but just sending me to an empty field intersection with no knowledge of what may show up, like, that's a harder pill to swallow. So that's what my thing was to our commander was like, that's why I got later on after we left Zappo and went back to Kyiv, I asked him to issue me some certain tools and equipment because, hey, I've got an idea to do just that. I'll go 30 clicks. I don't care about the distance. It's just about knowing what I'm going towards. And so we started kind of developing mission packages and stuff. But I don't want to digress. I just want to focus on what you were saying is like they started trusting us with more information.
Yeah.
And as we got that information, they started understanding like we'll do the job. And he even made a joke. He goes, I know you guys like to talk first, and then you go on the mission.
Yeah.
So once they realized we want to do a little bit of planning, put it together, give us some of your intel stuff, we'll develop some of our own package, and then the ops started getting a lot more organized.
But that only happened after we proved our ability to go out there and kill the enemy and not just totally decompose as a unit.
Yeah.
Because Vadim's first experience when he brought the Foreign Legion to Mashtoon was dudes are deserting in droves.
Yeah.
As soon as it gets hard, the Americans and the foreigners, they run away. And if they take one casualty, it's game over. Right? There's no more fighting after casualties start happening. And so why would they trust us with that information?
Sure.
When we're deserting, And it was only after that whole fight for irpin, and we had this core group of dudes who stayed through the whole thing, that they were like, okay, now we can do some talking because you've proven that you're capable of operating, you're capable of fighting.
Yeah.
And only because of that. And so I think that was important for us.
Absolutely. Prove your worth, right?
Yeah.
Earn your lunch.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier kind of a Call of Duty thing, and I don't want it to be so jokey or anecdotal, but it was pretty.
You level up.
Yeah, the parallels of a Call of Duty game and what we went through. It's hard to ignore that you start out like we showed you you on the couch with the crappy FNC. Like that's how the game starts.
Level
man.
zero.
Level zero. A gun that's just ancient that barely works and it jams. You have no optics on it, and then they got us the new weapons, and then slowly someone got an optic, someone got a better piece of kit, someone got a whatever, and so it's like you keep leveling up. And now you get more information, and now you have more battle space information, and now you get access to the map. Yeah. Because at level 1, you don't know the map, you don't know where anything's at.
Yeah, exactly.
Level 5, there's maps, and now you have enemy positions.
I remember looking at Kevin and Jesse, and they got these rifles with M4 suppressed rifles with 0 thermals on top, and I was like, how many prestiges do you need to get that? I was like, yeah, but that was just because of their being down to clown and Mashtoon and getting ambushed and all that good stuff.
Well, I remember coming in to the hotel lobby and seeing him holding his suppressed M4, just like he's got the suppressor on his foot and he's just holding it and just standing there looking like a badass. Yeah. And I was like, we hadn't gotten the Brens yet, and so we're like, what? Like, what is this? Where did you get this? Like, this guy looked like a magician. Like, he had just the best gun out there. And then come to find out, those M4s sucked because
they were no good at all.
Yeah, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, they're like some knockoff or something. But it was funny, man. Sean made a funny joke that when they were taping our arms up with like yellow or blue tape. He was like, "This is the worst game of airsoft I've ever played." It was so funny, dude. Oh man.
I didn't get that. Why we had, and we would switch, and it was almost like both sides knew, like, okay, today we're going to switch. You're green, I'm white. Tomorrow it's yellow and red, and they would always switch.
I don't know what the deal was with the armbands, but I brought this up in the car. I was like, if the enemy is wearing armbands, couldn't we just not wear armbands? And everyone just looked at me, and no one said anything. And it was like, and Lou turned around, he's like, no, mate, we wear the blue. And I'm like, okay. Got it.
No, mate.
Yeah.
You have to understand, mate. I have an order.
Yeah, this is how it is. I was like, all right, whatever, man. But, dude, Lou said some funny stuff, man. He's got a ton of good one-liners.
He does.
Yeah.
He was a funny guy. I like having him around. He had some funny stuff to say.
Yeah. And as much as, tactically we didn't get along, just great human being in general.
Yeah.
And Patriot, awesome guy.
Yeah, I have I'll try to keep it in the positive, right? Because not getting along tactically put me in a pretty difficult situation a couple of times, and I think that ultimately taking the conversation away from him and just in general, it's like the tactics for sure. I think that's where we brought the value. Just double tapping on that. It's like there's a way to do the same op, but with a more effective outcome.
Yeah, for sure. And I even saw it too. When I killed that Russian kid, like it was a short gunfight afterwards where we had them by complete surprise. We had full full initiative, right? The momentum was fully in our favor, but instead of closing with and completely destroying, we decided to withdraw because of the Ukrainian command. And we were pissed afterwards. We were yelling at them. We were like, the heck are you doing? Like we had them on we killed their guard that was outside. Like we should have gone in the building and and burn the place down and let them all, run out and finish them there. We had the opportunity to kill an element that was getting a truck sent to them of food. So like at least 8 to 12 dudes, if not 30. Sure. And when we cleared that building later, the entire basement was covered in sleeping quarters. So like 30 plus mattresses, and we had them. Like we had them in bed at 5 a.m. sleeping.
Yep.
Like we could have smoked those guys, dude. But they weren't ready for the gunfight. They said we're gonna withdraw, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I struggled with that.
Yeah.
Some indecisiveness, some unwillingness to do what we came to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get away from irpin because there's a lot more stuff that happened. But we had done, on CAT, our team was doing a lot of Overwatch stuff, and we were trying to do calls for fire.
Yeah.
So having been in an artillery unit, I was familiar with like how to call the fire, make adjustments and stuff. Obviously, using MGRS, Ukrainians not being NATO, they have their own mapping system. So I had the GPS that adjusted to it had their format. I forget what the code is for what they're using, but it had that. So I adjusted my stuff to them so that whatever grid I was giving them was their numbers.
Yeah.
But you have the language barrier, and even though my the dude attached to us spoke English and Ukrainian, his translation and understanding of what I was saying in terms of adjustments was different. And then the people on the other end, you always want to understand who you're talking to, like who's a unit,
mm-hmm.
and it's always good that someone from your unit at some point has gone and shook hands with these people and said, hey,
so they care about you.
Well, so they care about you, and also so they know, hey, when I say this is what I mean, just so we're all on the same page. Now, we all should have the same training, so it shouldn't matter, but you always, if you're going into a big thing, and I'm going to need your assets, and I'm going to call for fire, and you're going to respond to that mission, that fire mission, if I say up 50, I'm not talking from your position, I'm talking up 50 from my position, right? Or you expecting that I'm going to say up 50 from the way that you're looking, right? Mm-hmm. And so that conversation hadn't been had because I didn't know what their SOPs were. So but I said, so I would make those corrections. I said up 50 from our position so that it was clearly passed on, like from the way that I'm looking at the target, up 50 so that they can adjust fire. And it was dancing all over the place. Never getting to I saw those guys. I could see them. I'm looking through the binos. They're standing right outside. There's a BTR on the other side of this building, and it's driving me crazy that I cannot get these guys walked into the target. And so I would say, give me a round in this position, give me a round in this position, and then they would call back, oh, we're just going to shoot 5 rounds, and you tell us what happened. Like, that's not how that works. How do I...
Yeah.
Because then they would shoot the 5 rounds in various locations. I'm like, what do you want me to adjust, man? The first round, the 5th round? Do you remember which position adjustments you had for each round?
Yeah.
So how can I adjust that? It's like, I need you to do 1 round. Let me adjust you on target and then fire for effect.
Yeah.
But don't just shoot 5 rounds randomly.
And that goes back to, just 9-year-old military. They don't have all those hundreds of years of experience and, all these different kinds of wars to pull from.
Yeah.
Like, especially in Ukraine, they have the experience they gained from the Soviet military before, I think it was 1991 when they gained their independence. They have their pre-1991 experience, so Afghanistan, Georgia, Chechnya, and it's just a very, Soviet kind of way. And just in these recent 8 or 9 years is when they've been transitioning to a more westernized version of that. So it's a little bit of hybrid fighting. The Ukrainians make it work for them wonderfully.
Yeah.
Right? But for us, it didn't work because that's not how we were fighting, But, yeah, it's tough because we want to fight our way always. And they have their own. It's different, and it is what it is.
Yeah, adapting to the place you're in is important.
Yeah.
And I was given some really good advice years ago.
Yeah.
By a pretty good dude that said, you have to be a chameleon. So you come into this new environment, and maybe it's foreign to you, and you can't come in expecting them to adapt to you.
Yeah.
You're a lone dude in this big thing. So you're a lone dude in this one giant machine. You have to adapt to this machine.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to flex and bend this machine to your will. That's just not how things work.
Yeah.
It's just not how the universe works, right? It's like you're a lone asteroid coming into the orbit of a solar system. You're going to get sucked into the gravity of how that solar system works, man. You're not going to move the star off its axis or trajectory or anything like that. So a little bit of some tolerance, and that's part of that international worldliness, right? Of like, be well-traveled, understand that different cultures are not you, and be willing to adapt.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. That's what my advice to Americans or anyone else who's going to go over there. That's also what my advice boils down to. Like, go there to help and to conform. Don't go there to be the soldier of fortune, because you're just as likely as any of the other, hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers who are nameless in Western media who have died out there as well. Every day, dying, hundreds. By now, I'm sure that it's in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of nameless Ukrainian soldiers that you'll never hear about. You're just as likely to be one of them, much more than you are to be some like battlefield hero.
Yeah. What have you observed in the media? Because I know you're pretty in touch with the news and the history of things.
No,
more so than I am.
I'm not in touch with the news at all. I don't read any news.
Well, when we talk and I've heard some of the stuff you've said, like, it seems like you're more in touch with it. But you had mentioned before, like when we were in Oregon, you had mentioned something about like the mindset and the reactions of the volunteers that come back, and they have like a certain taste in their mouth about the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so these volunteers, they go over to fight in the Foreign Legion, and then they come back and they just trash the Ukrainians, like the Foreign Legion's crap, the Ukrainian military's crap, and everything's crap. And it's like, what was your purpose even in going over there? If, like, that makes it clear to me that their purpose was to do nothing but serve themselves, right? Because if they went over there to heed Zelensky's call to establish the Foreign Legion and to, help Ukraine defend the motherland, right? Then why would they come back and just trash them, like, ceaselessly? It makes no sense to me. And a lot of the things of what they're saying are those guys who never made it past the battlefield friction, right? They showed up, they got their chain jerked around, and then they went home. And then they just trash the Ukrainians. It makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
And I listened to some of these YouTubers and stuff, and they're like, oh, the Foreign Legion is this, the Foreign Legion is that. Like, and they're getting these assessments from the people who came back within the first 2-3 months of the war, right? And it's like, what kind of assessment, you know? Can these people really give? They don't know the full picture. They were just there for a couple months. And I don't claim to know the full picture either, but I'm at least willing to say, give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, they're still fighting this war when we thought they would collapse in a month.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. And this isn't like a rah-rah session for Ukraine or anything.
Yeah,
but
no, not at all.
I think it's more of a thing to point at. And obviously, we're Americans, so we're hearing from Americans that are coming back, and they have that bad taste in their mouth. And it's certainly anyone listening. I don't want that to be the mindset of what you think is going on over there. I think you and I are in agreement that there's some good things happening there. And obviously the Ukrainians are doing a good job because they're not being overrun. They haven't been fully taken over. And for what it is right now, Kyiv is safe and a lot of cities are safe. And they've even taken back some ground. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly the sign of somebody that's doing something effectively.
Exactly.
And you can, I think, and I learned something in boot camp. The senior drill instructor said something, and I don't know if it was in relation to what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas saying. I don't know if that had come out yet, but he said what goes on in the house stays in the house. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can fact check that. Like, when did the saying "what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas"?
I'm sure that's pretty timeless. I think maybe you just had never heard of it.
Maybe. See if you can find when did that saying come out. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But anyway, this is in 02, senior in 03 advertising agency.
Oh, 03, okay.
So this is so a year later, so a year after my senior drill instructor had said this, he goes, what happens in the house stays in the house.
Okay.
And so if there's like we've shared some stories here, but we're not skylining anybody. We're not talking trash about anyone. Like, obviously there's things that were ineffective. Obviously there's things that we had some issues logistically. I think it's nice to be honest about what was and what wasn't, so people have a clear picture of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were there nevertheless, man. And so we're not there to trash on anybody. We're there to support that place and understand that Ukraine is a gateway to the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
And
so they've had, as the gateway to the rest of Europe, right? You've had the Soviets march through Kyiv, the Nazis, you've had the Reds, the Whites, the Mongols at one point, the Vikings even before them. And so, and not to mention countless hundreds, if not thousands of other, larger or more localized armies have at one point marched through Kyiv. And so when we show up and we say, we're Americans from the American military, they're like, okay, like, cool. Like, we have our own way of doing things and we don't care.
Right.
Like, that's it. They don't care. They've had not a million, but they've had a bunch of armies march through Kyiv at one point or another all throughout their history, which also I think plays into when you were talking about, these people who stayed in Irpin, right? Those people, some of them, those older ones, could have been alive during World War II when, very young at that age, but when the Nazis marched through at one point and then the Soviets, like, it's nothing new to them. They've sheltered the storm before. I remember after you left, Paul, I was in Sviatohirsk, it was called. It was like this city on a river, and we're down on the front line, like right on the river's edge, and a drone goes up, and we're like, oh no, we're about to get smashed with artillery. So we start looking for a basement, and I kick in this gate, and I'm moving over to the basement, and I kick the door in, and my rifle's pointed at like two old babushkas, dude. And I'm like, oh man, they looked like they were like out of a time capsule, dude. Like 105, they looked old. And I was like, what are you guys doing here? Like, we're about to be shelled, and they're just like chilling down there in the basement. And they were freaking out, dude. They thought we were Russians. And but so one of the Ukrainians came down and calmed him down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that, because I know I heard a story from somebody that there was a woman that had been in World War II and had been shelled and had survived it. Was that those women, or?
So I don't know. I didn't speak to them at all. I didn't have anyone translate for me or anything. So no.
I know it was somebody's experience, and if one of the dudes listening remembers this, I'd love to be reminded, but it was somebody on some op ran into some World War II surviving woman that had been under artillery, and now she's had survived all these different wars since World War II, and then now this one.
Yep.
And it was like, geez, man, what's this old lady's like story?
And it's, you know, it's no different to them. Whether you're in the American military or the French military, British, Nigerian, doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
They have their own structure, and they're making it work.
Yeah.
So it's tough to go over there as a legionnaire and just be like, you have to do things the way we used to do them. And that's the only right way. Like, as an infantryman, you have to be open. You have to be courageous. You have to be down to clown, right? Above all, more than anything, you just have to be down.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That adaptation to your surroundings is key, man. That's big.
Yeah.
To whether or not you're going to lose your stuff, lose your mind, or stay in the fight. You had mentioned this earlier, like in terms of philosophy of like being an infantryman, being who you are, to determine, having that mindset of like Greg is the non-combatant guy, and he's the one that convinces you to stay in the fight. Like, what is your mindset on staying in the fight, winning that gunfight over somebody versus losing the fight and surrendering to fear?
Dude, special operations has become this like, it's just so Hollywood now, right? It's like these super, like here's what special operations is. It is not a decisive effort, right? It is a shaping operation. So in any strategic plan, the decisive operation, the operation that decides whether or not you win, has nothing to do with special operations. Not nothing, but it's not, they're not directly, how do I want to say this? Special operations do not partake as the decisive unit, right? They provide shaping for the battlefield. They provide support, but in no way would a general say, we're going to push our special operations units as the spearhead to take this ground, or like as the main force, right? Because that's not the purpose of special operations. We shape the battlefield for the infantry to move on, right? That's what Navy SEALs cut their teeth doing in World War II. These long-range reconnaissance missions, these blowing up obstacles on the beach in preparation for D-Day, like that's not the main operation, right? They could have still landed troops without those things happening, and we still could have taken the beach without any of that. And not to put down what the SEALs did, right? Because those guys died in incredibly high numbers. It wasn't like they were so tactically proficient that they weren't out there dying. No, these missions were dangerous and people were dying. Like Merrill's Marauders in World War II suffered an 80% casualty rate. That is special operations. Like, go out there, do the mission, harass, shape the battlefield, destroy, right? At the cost it takes to complete the mission, right? That's a special operations mindset. Not this, I don't have enough of a plan. I don't have enough equipment. I don't have this. I don't have that. Like, that's not what special operations is, but that's what it's become, or that's at least what it seems to have become, right? So I will always, every single time, respect the regular infantrymen as much as I respect anyone else in the special operations community, if not more so. Because a lot of people who make it into special operations nowadays, they don't have that mindset where they're down just to take the fight to the enemy, right? They need all the stuff. They need the support. And, you know, I'm going to toot my own horn just because I'm a Ranger or ex-Ranger. But those dudes were down to clown, man, over in Ukraine. We had, you know, in Mykolaiv at one point, we had like 6 Rangers there. And every single one of them down to take the fight to the enemy.
Yeah.
And there were, you know, SF dudes, Marines, Army, everyone. I saw everyone from every branch of service, from almost every special operations unit, give up and leave it at one point or another. Would you agree? Give or take.
Like go back home or something?
Yeah, just be like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, at some point. It's hard to make a basic judgment like that because what were the reasons people had to leave? Because I'm thinking about myself in that mode. Like after Mykolaiv, I had to go.
No, I'm not saying like that. Like they got back from an operation that went poorly. Yeah. And they were like, this is it for me. I'm done. Yeah,
people did that for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone started looking for an out after a couple bad ops on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that lends to partially being why, like, some dudes are not water trained, and so.
But I was an Army Ranger, dude. I had nothing to do with the water.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I went out there, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to save it from speaking poorly of anyone, right?
Yeah,
it's like people have their varying reasons why they leave, but you're right. People started leaving once ops started getting sideways.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. People started checking out.
Yeah. But my point is not to trash anyone. It's just to say, like, at its core, special operations was about completing the mission under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Regardless of equipment and regardless of support. So, you know, the Rangers at Point du Hoc, they stormed the beach to take these guns that weren't even there, right? And they took massive casualties, right? 2nd Ranger Battalion, insane casualties, running up these, you know, scaling these cliffs while German machine gunners are shooting, just pouring fire down on the beach and dropping grenades on them. Like, it was nuts.
Yeah, I do gotta say, like you mentioned earlier, like Sean's admittedness that he was a little overweight and you know, couldn't run and stuff. So it comes down to capability, though. Like if you've got a team, like we were being utilized in a special operations capacity down south because we were trying to shape things, right?
Yeah,
we were trying.
Certainly.
We were trying to establish beachheads. We were trying, in which there was some effectiveness there.
Mm-hmm. We
won't get into what that was, but there was some definite outcomes that positive outcomes that resulted from our efforts in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we can say from a definition standpoint, we weren't doing infantry work. We were doing shaping efforts, right? By your definition, so it'd be special operations. But not everyone was the kind of capable dude that needed to be. Not everyone had the fitness level to perform it, right?
Yeah.
So you're going into doing something that requires that no quit attitude with people that didn't have the full fitness capability.
Yeah.
To be able to overcome their body.
Yeah, there's mindset and then ability to execute.
Right.
And yeah, unfortunately we didn't always have the ability.
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking is like not everyone had the ability. And it's again not a knock on the heart of the guys or anything, but that fitness, man, that'll eat you alive if you can't ruck with that pack deep into the territory where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And so we should have a Mykolaiv episode where we talk about
Lessons learned,
the mosquitoes and the whole thing.
We were calling it since we had 6 Rangers, we were calling it Peninsula phase of Ranger school, man, because it was just so crappy out there.
Yeah, certainly one of the worst environments I've ever done any work in.
Yeah,
that was tough. It was tough to maintain because we're not sleeping, we're being eaten alive, and the only way to prevent ourselves from being eaten alive is to completely cover ourselves in every piece of clothing we had.
And it still wasn't enough.
Sweating our asses off, and it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And you're being asked to like go do stuff. It's like it was a tough deal. And then the stuff with the boats and the whole thing, it was
I remember we were taking that ambush position and they were burying the like makeshift IED we made. And I remember Adam asking, he goes, "Are we at the minimum safe distance from that?" And everyone just looked at him, but no one wanted to move again. Everyone was just like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was a tough environment for sure.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier about just having the logistics in place to be able to get to the op, like just all of the effort. All of the pain, and I mentioned this in my last episode talking about the Ukraine Independence Fund, like where we're trying to do fundraising to help with the volunteers over there with med kits and protective equipment and the logistical support, like the amount of effort to just get a dude to a place with the right equipment, the right tools, the right sustenance, water, and to get him all the stuff he needs to do the job and to get him safely back. That is a massive amount of work.
Huge.
And that is, I don't want to put percentages on things, but that is a massive percentage of the whole deal. Mm-hmm. It's like all of your fitness, all of your training, all of your weapon skills, all of that stuff is pretty binary, right? It's like be in the gunfight and you're out of the gunfight, and I don't want to get into all that stuff, but it's like all of the work to get there and to leave is a massive percentage of the whole thing. And
well, it's most of it.
Yeah.
It's more than most of it. It's the vast, majority of it. It's just the logistics that it takes to get into the battle and to get out of the battle.
Yeah.
To find the enemy, fix the enemy, destroying the enemy, easy. Getting there, nearly impossible.
Yeah, and I have a lot of experience in working on planning ops and in planning the logistics out, but I didn't appreciate how organized the U.S. military was.
Mm-hmm. Because I didn't appreciate that either.
I didn't understand how amazing and smooth running this machine was that we've created over the 200-plus years that we've had our military.
Yeah. How many times when you were in the military were you like, this is just administrative BS, this is crap, like...
Yeah.
All the time, dude.
Yeah.
And now, after being in Ukraine, I'm like, maybe I would take just a little bit of that back to have a semblance of organization.
Yeah. Yeah, like that red tape exists because it saves lives and it makes sure that once the dudes actually get to where they're going.
Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes it hinders. Sometimes it's, there's a time for both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But in general, right, like why do we have all these things in place? Like we could talk about boats specifically. Like why do you have all these regulations and rules? Like every boat must have this sort of thing on the boat and must have a backup thing for this, or it must have that. Why? Because when you're in the middle of the Black Sea at 3 a.m. and shit starts sinking, you need those backup tools.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have one unsultry boat mission out there. It was always a breakdown, someone running out of fuel, and just generally being stuck in the ocean, or stuck in the ocean, unable to move, or stuck in the ocean sinking. One of those 3 things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real gut check moment for sure.
Dude, we should let's do the Reddit thing with the video and all those comments that are like, these guys are so professional.
What is this?
Remember at Dan's funeral, dude, I was showing you the Reddit thing with all the comments? And they were all like, these guys are so professional, but like the entire operation was just a mess.
Do you want to pull this up?
Yeah, yeah.
Go to Reddit. And what do you?
It's like Ken Re like
K-E-N.
KHEN RHEE.
2 words.
Yeah.
And that's it?
Yeah. That's the first one. Yeah.
Yep. Which one?
Yeah, it's that. Play the video, and then we'll go through the comments.
I'm going to have to blur some of this out.
Take another look, bro. You good to drive? You lightheaded?
Oh, that's me.
Because that's just a
Yeah.
cut, brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you think
Can
okay?
you drive?
No, I'm
Can you
good.
think okay?
My head's fine.
All right, brother.
We're not visual. Good?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good, guys.
All right.
It just fucking hurts.
I got it.
Can you see it?
It's not deep, man. It's skin.
Is it still dripping?
That's just a cut, brother.
Oh, dude, get a fucking picture of this.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, fuck, dude. That's my fucking neck.
Yeah, it's good, it's good. Come on, let's go. Get in the fucking vehicle.
That was Kevin grabbing his rifle. That was Kevin trying to grab his rifle.
Kevin, get it. Hurry up.
Let's go.
Hold it, just hold it. Go.
All right,
Go.
Fuck. Come on, easy.
You're good, man.
All right.
I got left. You get right.
Let's go.
Fucking rifle.
I don't have a rifle.
I got left, you get right. I don't have a rifle.
Oh, shit.
That shit's classic.
Hey, he's good. It's just look at it. Hold on.
Hey, tires might be bad. Tires
definitely were
Oh, yeah, the tires were bad. So I'm behind you guys. And just watching your vehicle limp along, dude, it was bad.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go.
Someone look at our 6. Do we see anything coming? Or?
Yeah, we got him. You have to pick up.
Yeah, we got him. What does that mean?
Okay, maintain the speed.
All right, keep going.
All right, keep going. It's coming. Fuck, incoming fire. Incoming fire. Incoming fire. Come on.
Ken is worried, bro. He is worried.
Well, I got blood dumping out the back of my
Yeah,
head, so
yeah.
it's kind of serious.
Oh, man. It's like,
Kevin goes, my rifle blew up.
Dude, it missed the back. If we were still pissing back there, we would be dead.
Dude, they are dying.
He's not kidding.
No, he's right.
We
He's
should
right.
have been
over
there.
there too, man.
Dude, that shit was fucking
It's
right.
incredible that we were.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah, we
survived
made it out of that.
Yeah, dude.
Very lucky.
Hey, if we hadn't walked over to go bitch your loot, we'd be dead.
You hear the tires slapping the wheel well.
Tell us.
Fucking
We're done?
Hold on 1 second. Give me 10 seconds.
1 second.
I was trying to get the engine restarted.
All right, get rid of the bump. Get rid of the bump.
Yeah.
And then we were like, fuck it.
Yeah, or that thing was done, dude.
Yeah.
Next vehicle. Yeah, this vehicle's dead.
Okay, so
Yeah.
quick context for those watching. That was me driving. I won't get into the whole thing about the op, but we were supposed to just be doing a recce, and it turned out not to be a recce.
Yeah, I
It
don't
turned
know what it was.
They had that building zeroed
Yeah.
perfectly, and we were standing right at the back of that van. We got a picture of it.
Yeah.
We're standing behind that van, and then we went to go talk to somebody.
No, what happened, dude, we're all behind the van. Kevin goes to take a piss, and then he goes, man, I'm bored. Let's go talk crap to Lou. And we're all like, oh, we love when Kevin talks crap to Lou. And he's a Ukrainian. He's got all these one-liners. And so we all go walk over before Kevin even initiates the shenanigans. Just the entire roof caves in, the back of the vehicle explodes. Freaking, it was just a mess. Just one artillery round. That was it. Right in the middle of where we all were.
Yeah. And it was pretty much. Oh, and I had Ryan Macbeth on earlier this week, and he says he can do impact assessment, and I forgot to have him look at that. So for everyone listening, I want to have him do an impact assessment on that, because you look at it, it was most likely 120 that hit, but because it must have had a delay or the ground was soft or something, but it sunk in like 4 feet into the ground, then exploded.
Yeah.
That is the one thing
That saved us.
why we're still alive right now.
Yeah, the only reason.
We walked away from there, because if we were standing right there, we wouldn't be alive right now. But we walked away, and because that round sunk in and then exploded, we didn't catch any shrapnel. We didn't catch any, any of the big shockwave of the stuff. I still felt it in my chest.
Yeah. Oh, no, it rung my bell, dude. I took a big nap after that.
Yeah.
Like, I was so drained and spent, even though we didn't really do anything. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, that thing was right on top of us. But I mentioned it a couple episodes ago, like, I didn't have my helmet, and there's a whole story about the helmet thing I won't get into.
That was the Pauly Walnuts moment,
Jesus.
dude.
I didn't have a helmet, and the building fell on my head, basically. And
Yeah.
we're running out of the building. That was the most slow motion moment of my life.
That
dude.
was Indiana Jones, dude, in real life. The entire building coming down, and you're just like running for the exit.
Yeah.
It's like Indiana Jones Temple Run, just like.
It was, dude. And so as we're running out, I know we're sprinting. Like, I know that's what we were doing, but I was like, like, it felt like it was in 10th time speed or something.
Yeah.
And then as we're running, something smashes my head, and I'm like, ah. And so I'm like, oh, shit. And so we're running out, and there's all those previous impact craters. And so we jump in one of those, like a modified foxhole, right? And we're in there, and we're like, you okay? You okay? And I'm
There
like,
was 4 of you guys in your little impact crater, dude. It was you, Ken, Lou, and Chris, and then it was me and Kevin in mine. It was so funny, dude.
And I'm like, you okay? You okay? And I look, and my hand, I can't even see my hand. It's just red, just drenched blood. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, and they're like, hey, we got to get out of here. Like, who's got the keys? And I was like, I got the keys. And so this logic didn't make sense at the time, but it was like, I was like, I got the keys, I'll go get the van. So as blood is dumping out of my head, I'm running back into the building. I get the van turned on, and the back end of the van is just
destroyed,
gone. And so I'm basically driving like this, like, kind of lowrider thing out the deal. Who went and got the truck? Was it Yuri?
Yeah, it was Yuri.
Okay, so Yuri runs and gets the truck. So we pull the vehicles out, and I know I'm a little phased right now at the moment. So when I'm running in, Kevin's like, get my rifle. And so, but I'm thinking, dude, they zeroed the building and they shit on us and they got us perfectly.
Yeah.
Any second now, fire for effect is coming.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm running into a building I know in my mind is about to completely just be vaporized.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, any second now. So as I'm running in, I completely forget he asked me to get the rifle like 4 seconds ago. He said, get the rifle. Completely forget about it. Just get in the van, and I'm like, fuck the rifle. And so I pull out, and then he's like, I got to go get my rifle. And I'm like, dude, let's get the fuck out of here. We'll come back for it. And he's like, no. So he runs to go get the rifle. So that's the part of the beginning of the video where you see we're just sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're waiting for follow-on rounds that, for some reason,
they didn't follow it up.
Never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so from my perspective, dude, we run out of the building. I go run and jump in the shell hole. I see Yuri take cover next to the building that just got hit, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, but I'm gonna. The better idea, in my opinion, is to run out in this open field and lay in this tiny shell hole. And so that's what I did. And Kevin jumped in with me, dude. And I'm looking at myself. My entire body is still exposed to the open ground. And I'm like, just like trying to contort like my vital organs into this tiny shell hole. And Kevin's trying to do the same thing. And he goes, and I just start laughing. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And Kevin, he goes, he's got like all kinds of debris. He's got all kinds of debris in his eyes. He's like, I can't see. Am I hit? Am I hit? And I look at him, I'm like, oh fuck, Kevin, your eyes are gone. And he was like, what? He was like, but and then I was like, no, you're fine. He's like, oh, okay. Well, I saw Paul get hit. And so we yell over, like, Paul, you okay? You're like, yeah, I'm just bleeding, whatever. Then we're like, we need to get the vehicles and get out of here.
You made me sound like a little bitch. Yeah, I'm just bleeding.
Well, sorry, Paul. It was a Pauly Walnuts moment with the helmet thing, dude. I had to get it in. But yeah, so you go run back and get the car, and Yuri gets the truck, dude. And me and Kevin are just laughing hysterically because the whole situation is just a mess, dude. Like, literally for a good, 4 or 5 seconds until you guys pull out with the vehicle, we're just dying. Like, can't even function laughing so hard. And the vehicles pull out. I hop in with Yuri and Lou. And when Kevin goes back to get his rifle, Yuri, he looks around, he goes, blat, and then runs back. Yuri forgot his rifle too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so Yuri ran back, grabbed his, and got back in the vehicle before Kevin could find his. because Kevin's was like right on the impact
Yeah.
of where the artillery round was. It survived, but no one knows where it went. But yeah, we started pulling out of there, dude. Lou and Yuri were just like screaming at each other in Ukrainian. Like they were so mad about the whole situation and like blaming each other and stuff. It was just like it's hilarious to listen to. And so I keep laughing. Like I can't stop laughing, dude, because it's so funny. And I pull out my phone to take pictures because I just can't forget this moment. And Lou, he turns around, he's like, "This is not funny, mate. This is very serious shit, suka." I was like, and I captured this photo right at the perfect moment. That's that like quintessential meme photo of Lou, where we just put all of his one-liners on there. But anyways, this video got posted on Reddit, and the comments, dude, are so funny.
Have you seen some of them?
Yeah. So it's like they're like talking about how, you know, we had to go mess around with Lou. Hold up.
No, let's keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. There's some that talk about, they're like, "Oh, these guys are so professional." Yeah, here it is. Being able to come to terms that you might just die at any second, being able to take someone else's life, and the ability to manually call on adrenaline when you need it, in my opinion, makes the best. Like that was not at all what was going on.
How'd the guy know I was a Marine?
Yeah, I don't. Probably said something in the video.
Huh. Yeah. Thank you, Lou, for your stupidity.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's
Ken is talking about
dude,
incoming
look
fire.
at my fucking neck.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was hilarious because I was like, dude, I can't believe, because we sat there for a few seconds while Kevin was getting his rifle, and I didn't know what was going on. I knew there was a lot of blood, and then I guess we can say names, but Chris was like, "Don't worry, that's just a cut, brother."
Yeah. It's like,
and then I see in the mirror, because I know I can see it, but then I see in the mirror my whole side of my head is just blood.
And then you're like,
"Ooh, oh, dude, my whole neck."
Yeah, look, these guys are hard as nails. I'm like, dude, we're just out there.
He probably knew minor head injuries just tend to bleed a lot.
Yeah, like you were thinking of that at that very moment. like we're so damn proficient, dude.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, I'd be saying the same thing. He's got some serious street cred now.
Always impressed at how these guys remain calm and get shit done under fire like this. Lou is screaming at Yuri in the front seat. Like, it is not okay.
Nobody remained calm.
No. Oh, man. You either learn to put your emotions aside or die. It's not that simple. You can definitely put your emotions aside and still die.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It comes natural to some, it seems. Huh. Yeah, there's a bunch of comments. If you looked at the top, it was like 21,000 thumbs ups or something. What, arrows up at the top there?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was this whole thing on there. I knew Ken had a video about it, but...
Yeah, it's just funny though, dude. Like to see what people think and how it actually was. Like, it was just, to me, the situation was artillery round landed. Me and Kev laughed in the artillery hole, and then Lou and Yuri were freaking out at each other, and then we drove away.
Yeah,
and these people were like, these guys, you know, they're so proficient, and I'm like, you know,
remaining calm under fire.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly calm. It was just nothing you could do about it.
I thought it was funny though. I was laughing too. I was like, dude, I can't believe my neck is like covered in this much blood.
Yeah.
What did you change it to there, John? Controversial? Oh, cool. Well, yeah, let's see. A lot of real men doing God's work. Okay.
I sure hope so.
These guys are absolute heroes, but
where the fuck are they? Yeah, Paul. You always had an issue with that, man, with the dang helmet.
We'll address it.
Okay.
Because at this point, everyone's thinking I'm an idiot, which I guess I was, but...
Yeah.
All right, so I'm running navigation and point for the team, right? They're giving me this, like, World War II area bell helmet, and I don't have the Ops Corps stuff like you guys did, so I'm just taking what they give me. But you're clearing stairwells in these buildings, and all you can hear is like all you can hear is your breathing inside this helmet.
Yeah.
Because the helmet's like covering your ears, so all you hear is your own breath. I can't deal with that, man. I mean, I gotta hear what's going on in the building. If we're walking down the street, I gotta be able to hear stuff. And if all I hear is my own breath, to me, that's more dangerous than not having the helmet on. So
yeah, in that situation for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I should have hung on to the one they gave me for when we were doing land warfare stuff, because then it's not as important to hear, close up or around a corner because there are no corners. But at that point, I had ditched the helmet, and I kept saying to them, like, guys, because of my job, I need to be able to, hear what I'm doing, but I got to have one of these. And they were giving away ops cores to dudes that had just shown up. And that was the problem that I had. I was like, let's allocate the gear to the guys that have like been here already. Yeah. We've had time in combat.
The ones who have prestige.
Yeah. I've hit a couple prestiges at this point. So like, where's my helmet, man? And so I see dudes that never left Kyiv with helmets. And I'm like, come on, man. So I'm talking to what's his name that did, gear for the Legion. I was like, can I please get a helmet? Like, give me a fast cut helmet so I can do my job properly. But yeah, so I should have just worn whatever they gave me, but that's why I didn't have a helmet on that day.
What's this one about the Army Ranger? I used to be impressed until I saw an Army Ranger lose his stuff at a party once. Another was on a bunch of meds and loved his rifle way too much. Okay.
Ooh, that got dark, huh?
Yeah. I'm sorry that was your experience with Army Rangers, I guess, but...
Go back up a little bit, John.
Yeah.
Your standard Ranger is pretty much the lowest tier of SF in the U.S. arsenal. Not trying to disparage, just you probably shouldn't hold a Ranger to CAG or a Raider or whatever to the same light. I think that's... I'll jump in here. I know you're going to come to the defense of the Rangers, but I will too, because you mentioned this earlier. Like, it's a different mission, and someone that would comment like that doesn't understand that the missions are different, but the skill set, the amount of readiness and fitness and preparedness is just the same, I would say.
Yeah, it's a different mission set, first of all. Like, they wouldn't send in Navy SEALs or Force Recon to seize an airfield that's, like, only a Ranger mission.
Yeah.
And lowest tier of SF, that doesn't even make sense. There's not like tiers to this, right? Tier 1 is a financial like budget designation. It's not, you don't say like these guys are tier 1 and these guys are tier 2. Like, that's when they say tier 1 operator, that just means they get allocated all the funding.
Yeah, I think that's not a discrepancy, but a misunderstanding by the public's viewpoint of like what is tier 1 or tier 2. And even within tier 2, you have varying levels of skill sets and things. Within tier 1, you have varying levels of skill sets.
Yeah.
And it's not,
Rangers have a tier 1 force as well. So this person, we're on both tiers. So this person doesn't know what they're talking about, first of all. Second of all, they say lowest tier of SF, right? So that also leads me to believe they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because SF is Green Berets, Special Forces.
Yeah, that's a specific element.
And there's no tier of, like, Rangers aren't a tier of Special Forces. So it's just a dumb comment. And he goes, not trying to disparage, which is exactly what he did. But no, you can hold everyone to the same light. Rangers, CAG, Raiders, PJ, hold everyone to the same light. There's
well, again, it's just a different skill set. Like I almost said paratrooper,
pararescue.
Pararescue, yeah. A pararescueman is highly skilled in medical, combat medical aid, right? And so if you take a Ranger medic versus a pararescueman, like, I don't know. Could you argue that the pararescueman is more highly medically trained?
Probably not. The Ranger medical, was like a serious thing in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, we had no preventable combat deaths at one point.
But aren't they given as much training? Like, I think pararescuemen go through 2 years of...
No, but pararescuemen, it's not only medical. It's like extractions and how to get bodies out and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk on
Yeah,
pararescue
yeah. I
men
wasn't
whatsoever.
trying to
I
measure knobs or anything.
I will say that the Ranger medics are freaking legends. If you haven't read about them, dude, like my old team leader, his name's Ryan Davis. He got 3 of his limbs blown off, 3 full limbs blown off. Saved, and they kept him alive for multiple hours on the ground, doing procedures that had never been done before in combat. Like that, it changed. From what I hear, it changed like a ton of misconceptions in the military medical community about like pushing drugs, or the importance of pushing drugs over, you know, refilling the bucket of like blood and fluids and stuff like that. And they shifted it towards like get people blood, get people the fluids they need on the ground over these, you know, meds that are only so effective.
Yeah, because you can pump someone full of ketamine, but if they're dying of blood loss,
well,
what's the benefit?
You know, there's like other meds too. It's like, you know, to regulate blood pressure. I'm not qualified at all to talk about this, but this is my understanding. Like all these different meds that they have that perform certain functions on the ground, people were starting to push them as like important to get to patients, and it just comes down to like refilling the fluids, getting blood to the patient, like, you know, stopping the bleeding. That's my extremely caveman version of this, because I am -1,000,000% qualified to talk about this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're speaking from what you do know.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, man, you and all the Rangers I worked with, I was impressed by the resiliency you guys demonstrated, your courage, your skill set, your level of preparedness to just get into any fight regardless of the lack of equipment we had or regardless of how poorly the logistics went off. Like, you guys exemplified true courage, true warrior spirit.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
It was my first time working with Rangers, and I was impressed. So
Thank you.
I'm glad that we've become friends. And
Yeah. And I'm glad I brought some pride to the Ranger Regiment, man.
yeah, you definitely did.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you had that turnaround point, that moment. I didn't know that story with Greg, where you made some decisions, and I'm glad you made the right ones.
Thank you, and thank you, man, for doing the same. And you brought great credit upon the Marine Corps as well. So
thanks, man.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah,
it means a lot. Well, we've been going for a while, and we got some camping and shooting to do.
Yeah, let's go shoot some targets, man.
Let's do it, brother.
All right.
All right. Thanks, man.
See ya.
See you, everyone. Bye.